Okay, well, it is 12 o'clock on the dot, so we will get started so we don't waste anybody's time. Just want to say, first off, thank you to all those that are currently logged on and are attending today. I want to introduce myself. My name is Danielle Coleman. I will be moderating today's presentation. Welcome to our latest Wonder Chat for parents titled, When Will You Get Better? Helping children and teenagers understand and cope when a parent has an incurable illness. A few housekeeping items before we get started. If you are attending the live webinar, you will be able to ask questions to the presenters in the Q&A feature. Also, if attendees would like to communicate with the other participants, you're able to use the chat feature to do so. I will be watching both throughout the presentation. We'll let our presenters know if they have any questions for you guys. So if you want to go to the next slide, Deanna. Awesome. So today's presenters are Deanna Smith and Kim Fryer. They will be providing today's presentation. We are very grateful for them for providing their knowledge and insight today. You want to make sure you are aware that the content in today's presentation may bring up emotions for you. We recommend you take care of yourself and step away if needed. We encourage you to call our Wonders and Worries helpline at 844-WE-WONDER if you would like to talk about any topics discussed in today's presentation, or if you would like individualized support for your family. We are glad you are tuning in with us and we welcome you. I will now hand it off to Deanna and Kim. Thank you, ladies, for presenting today.
Thank you. We are very excited to be here, and I'm going to start it off for the first half before I pass it over to Kim. But I first want to, and I'm Deanna, hello, glad everybody's here. I first just want to start off with what is Wonders and Worries? What is it that we do? Who are we? So Wonders and Worries offers free professional support for children and teenagers during a parent or primary caregiver's serious illness or injury. This could be a cancer diagnosis, it could be ALS, MS, heart disease, effects from COVID, stroke, etc. We are a team of certified child life specialists. So if you're not familiar with what is a child life specialist, we are pediatric healthcare professionals that are educated and clinically trained in the developmental impact of illness and injury. So we provide evidence-based, developmentally and psychologically appropriate interventions, including therapeutic play, preparation for procedures, and education to reduce fear, anxiety, and pain. Typically, child life specialists are found in pediatric hospitals and working with children who are hospitalized for either acute or chronic conditions. With Wonders and Worries, we are on the flip side working with the children to help them understand and cope with their parents' illness or injury. So Wonders and Worries values empowering parents and families as they navigate a parent's illness or injury. So we understand that children and teens can reach their full potential despite a parent's illness or injury. We promote including children early on and often in age-appropriate ways when a family is facing these challenges. And we do believe with continued support that children can feel connected throughout the medical situation, which promotes healthy short-term and long-term coping. So how does our program work? So we have a 6-week curriculum, clinically validated curriculum that we use. It's all through arts and crafts, games, and play and different activities. We provide age-appropriate understanding of illnesses, treatments, and side effects. We facilitate communication of feelings related to changes in the family. And I want to just have everyone look at this picture quickly. This is a little boy that I worked with whose mom had cancer. And we have the body outline cut out here. I asked him to identify 3 of the strongest feelings that he's been feeling about his mom's cancer, and then pick a color to go with each of those feelings. So if you were to just glance at this body outline, you think, oh my goodness, some little child just scribbled all over it. Not at all the case. If we look a little deeper and with explanation, he chose blue. So you see the blue heart, the blue scribbled in the belly, and the blue scribbled on the face with the tears. The blue was his worry. So he said he holds his worry about his mom in his heart, in his belly, and then he cries. If you see the red on the arms, he said that that was his anger. And when he was mad, he would squeeze his fist and feel the tension in his forearms. He also felt his anger in his chest and his belly. And you can see the angry eyebrows as well and the angry tears that went with it. There's more scribbled red in the chest. And he said that was also just his sad, mad worry, everything all mixed together. And he feels like, if you see a lot of scribble around the mouth, he feels like he just wants to explode. So it's helping to separate these feelings and validating them. And then we then teach them coping skills on how to deal with what's going on and to help ease the stress and big feelings that they're having, and sending them away with tangible coping skills. So before I move into the bulk of our presentation, I want to take just a moment to pause. If you will just check on your screen, Danielle's going to pop up a poll that should just pop up. If I can have you take just a quick moment to answer the poll.
So currently, Deanna, we have about 43% parent and caregiver and 57% professional. So we're split right down the middle who is attending today.
Nice. So they filled it out. Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing. Perfect. Well, thank you. I am so glad that you're all here. Please feel free to put it in the chat too, as Danielle said, any questions. I am very laid back, happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, so when will you get better? So I explained, while Wonders and Worries works with all illnesses and injuries, not only incurable illnesses, the focus of today's presentation is on incurable illness. And we define that as expected to have a shortened lifespan with likely medical decline over time. This is not the only ones, but some of the more prominent illnesses we might see might be stage 4 cancers, ALS, Huntington's, MS, dementia, HIV, AIDS, end-stage kidney failure, heart failure, or liver failure. Or also we're starting to see some from COVID or long-term effects from COVID as well. So how do we talk about it? We recommend start talking to your children and teenagers earlier rather than later. So as I move throughout this slide, we are assuming that you have already had an initial conversation with your children and teenagers upon maybe the initial diagnosis. And so this is adding on to that. So what we do know is that children and teenagers will benefit from honest education as soon as possible if the treatment changes, isn't working, or if the illness progresses. So it's important to use scientific language. So provide information about medical terminology, equipment, and procedures, especially with the teenagers. So it's important to use the word cancer, label any medical equipment that they're seeing, using the word chemotherapy or the certain tubes that they might be seeing, what it is that they are for and how they're helping. Include the child or teenager in decisions on daily care and how he or she can contribute. So children and teens want to help. They want to be a part. They want to not feel like they're just in the way. So it's identifying things that you can help, giving them little jobs, ways to include them. And this could be even for littles. It could be something like, you know, your job is to make sure that mommy always has a blanket because her feet are really cold a lot. Or your job is to make sure daddy always has his water bottle next to him. It's important for him to drink a lot. Or I would love if I could have a new picture each week, that I have something beautiful to look at in my room, to decorate my room, just little things. And for older, if appropriate, it might be helping with I've had teens that we've worked with that want to help with different syringes or changing out tubes or medicines, but obviously whatever the child or teenager is comfortable with as well. And then it's important to answer any questions and address any concerns. I will mention right here that if you have not already watched our Difficult Conversations Wonder Chat, I would strongly recommend that. And I will go into this piece about the initial conversation that is in that Wonder Chat that you can view to get a little more information. Repetition is key. So we know as adults, we need repetition. We need that information given to us to fully process and remember. Well, children really need this information repeated. And it's important to give small chunks of information, not necessarily everything at the same time, but giving small chunks and then review it weekly, monthly, or as needed. I have worked with some parents that feel very frustrated that they feel like they are repeating and telling their child the same thing over and over and over. Like, I already told you that. Why are you asking me if I'm getting any medicine? And it just takes a while to process that sometimes, and it is completely normal. So asking about their understanding and clearing up any misconceptions. We find that it's not only the little ones that have a lot of misconceptions, the teenagers have a lot of misconceptions as well. So really, really asking about what it is that they're thinking or what it is that they're understanding. With teenagers, our first reaction might be like, don't go Google this, don't Google it. Well, guess what? They're going to Google. So instead of saying, don't go Google what's happening to my body, maybe I know that you're probably going to look this up online. I want you to remember anyone can put anything on the internet, and there is a lot of inaccurate information. So then it might be sharing with them some appropriate websites to go through depending on your diagnosis. What are some legitimate, credible websites to guide them to? And then encourage them to come back to you and share with you what they found, and acknowledge every body is different. Everybody responds differently. But just talking about what might be correct. And then just as always, monitoring the internet usage. Encourage open and regular communication and questions. A couple ways that we like to do that are weekly family meetings. So I like to give the example of, say, every Sunday, and it's whatever works best for you and your family, but every Sunday dinner, we are going to have dinner together. And that is when I'm going to update you on what is happening this week, what procedures I have, what family might be coming into town, who is going to be taking you to baseball practice, who's bringing us to dinner tonight, or maybe if it's hospice, who's going to be coming to our home, or what medical equipment, or what are the changes that are going to be happening that week, so they know what to expect. Maybe even having a calendar and writing what might be happening that week as well. And then we use Wonders and Worries jars and encourage you to do this at home. So you can see the picture here on your screen. And you can use a jar, you can use a cup, you can use a bowl, it really doesn't matter. But just having strips of paper next to it, if as a family, you want to decorate the bowl or jar together, go for it. But it's just to have a place. If your child or teen is having a question or is having a worry that's really been replaying over in their mind, write it out, fold up the paper, put it in the jar, and maybe it's at those weekly meetings, you get the jar and pull it out and you answer all the questions. And then the family learns every Sunday at dinner, I know mom is going to answer any questions, give me updates on what's going on with her body, and we can share any worries. Also, just remember validating their experience that they're having. You know, maybe you feel very alone right now, and then just to remember in these weekly family meetings or when talking through with them, silence is okay. It can be really awkward for us, but just to be present. So some great conversation starters might be, there's really something I want to talk with you about. Or when you said, I hope we can all go to Disney World at Christmas, it made me think that maybe we should talk about what is expected to happen with this new treatment that I'm on. or kind of that I'm stopping treatment. I was wondering what you know about blank. I've noticed you've been curious about the people coming in and out of our house, or some things that have been happening with blank that I want to be sure you understood. Or I've noticed some changes with the way dad is acting, and I'm wondering what changes maybe you have noticed. So those are just a couple of examples. I would also encourage, when having these conversations, to have a support person with you as well. As sometimes these can be very difficult, and it helps to have another support adult there with you. So here are a couple of examples. There are many, many more. I'm just going to put a few in here of different analogies to explain some of the incurable illnesses that we see. So when talking about cancer, we might use weeds. So if we have a beautiful flower garden that's full of flowers, and then we have these weeds that represent the cancer cells that keep creeping in, we might explain a stage 4 or metastatic cancer as a cancer that has spread from one part of the body to another, but that we keep spraying these weeds and cutting these weeds, and there's some weeds that get trapped under a rock, or they're in a space where they just won't go away. They keep growing back. And that, that we still, the garden or yard can still thrive with some weeds, but that the goal is to minimize the spread of weeds as much as possible. So when talking about MS or ALS, maybe looking at a cell phone signal or internet signal, having a poor static connection. So if you're talking, you say you're talking to your friend on their cell phone and your cell phone, and they go through a tunnel and there's poor connection, and you're hearing just a couple of words, but you're not able to fully understand what it is that they're saying or able to make it. That we can also compare that with messages going from the brain to the rest of the body, and that these damaged nerves cause problems with these messages being sent. And then if you look over the picture to the right, you will see it's just pipe cleaners. And so we might use this as to discuss just the protective properties of myelin around the nerves, and how the immune system can attack the myelin, causing damage to the protective layer. So again, talking about how those messages are carried along the nerves from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain, and how sometimes those messages don't get through or get mixed up. And then to the left, you can see the Play-Doh, and this is a brain, and the red Play-Doh is where the tumor might be. So this could be either two different things. So it could be with a brain tumor and how that part of the brain is affected, or also with a stroke, if what part of the brain was affected if there's a stroke, and what are the changes they might be seeing because of where this happened. But use items from home. So a question that we get a lot: should I tell my child if the illness is progressing? The answer is yes. And again, as I go through these next couple of slides, again, I do want to acknowledge if this is where you are at currently, this can be difficult to hear and think about. So again, as Danielle mentioned, please, for your self-care, if you need to step away or just take a break, that is okay. We do encourage to continue to provide honest, age-appropriate information. It's important to explain what is happening to their loved one's body. So what's physically happening, and then maybe what's happening inside with different organs. Explain that there's currently no way to get rid of or stop the illness. And so, the doctors and nurses tried everything they could and all the different medicines they could to get the cancer out of the body, but it just didn't work. And then if the illness may cause other problems with the body, what is it that they will notice first? What is it that they will start to see? At some point, the body could stop working, which might mean that your loved one would die. A question we always get is, well, how much longer do we have? And then that can be a hard one to answer. Sometimes you could answer with, well, doctors believe that I will be here for Thanksgiving, but that I may not be here for Christmas still. or still be alive at Christmas time. And then just remember, it's okay to say, I don't know, whether it's to this question or any other questions that they have. That's a really good question. I don't know. Let's see next time that I talk to my doctor, I'm going to write that down and let's see if we can ask them together. When should I tell my child? So as far as when, just as with an initial conversation, it's best for this not to happen right before going to bed or right before dropping off at school or dropping off at a friend's house, but maybe at a time when you can sit down together, talk it through, and then having time to just allow for that silence, allowing for time to process, allowing for the child or teen to come back again and ask any follow-up questions. And then to really think about what are the changes that are impacting your child. So what are the day-to-day changes that have happened or will happen soon? So first looking at what is changing in their daily routine that's going to impact them the most. So are the adults that are around your child acting differently? Do you have family suddenly flying in from out of state and staying with you? Are you noticing a lot more people are coming over? Maybe people are crying or saying different things. These are all things when it's time to address. And then looking at how far your child is focusing into the future. So younger children, focus on the now. What is happening now? What is happening today? So today, family is coming over to see dad. We do know that dad has started to get worse, and he's getting, the cancer is progressing more, and he's going to be sleeping a lot. So we have Aunt Betty and Uncle Bobby from out of state are coming in because they want to have some time to talk to daddy. Time is difficult for children to comprehend, but preparation is still helpful. So explain timing related to holidays, seasons, school events. So again, whereas we can't say a definite how much time, it might be helpful, as I mentioned earlier, make the doctors think I might still be here at Thanksgiving, but probably not at Christmas. And then what questions is your child asking? That's a good indicator of what's going on. Children may not be able to ask you questions if they sense that you're not ready or able to talk about a difficult topic. So this is why it is wise and beneficial to sit down with them, and it just opens that door for communication. So whatever's brewing in their mind, they are able to share that with you. And again, I encourage that support person or support adult to have this conversation with you. So a couple activity ideas that I wanted to share. We have ask or tell. So have your child choose a stuffed animal or pillow to toss from family member to family member. And then each person chooses whether they want to ask a question about the illness or tell something about the illness. Another option, if you have quiet or more reserved children or teens, that you can write down questions ahead of time. And some examples might be, how would you describe the illness to a friend? Do you have an activity that helps you feel better when you're worried about the illness? And what is one change the illness has caused for you or your family? Another modification for teenagers might be doing this with a family text game of ask or tell. So especially teens that are very used to just texting everybody and not speaking, maybe they'll communicate and share more that way. And then the last activity I wanted to share regarding this is a body map. And so you can either have a little body cutout, you can draw one, you can trace the child's body or a body onto a piece of paper, onto a mirror, onto a window, onto chalk on the floor, anything, be creative. And then to look at on the front to write down what are the things that have changed. So what are they noticing? So this particular child, regarding her mom, she wrote on the mouth, it's difficult to speak now. On the hands that are kind of scribbled with gray, on one it says that it's hard to write. I can't use hands right. And then the legs can't walk anymore. And so then on the back, right, have to encourage the child to write, well, what are the things you still can do? What can we do instead? Instead of focusing on the what I can't do anymore, what can we still do? So on the back, she wrote, ask mom to share stories about when I was little on her computer. So if she can't write anymore, is she able to type some and on a computer? Maybe it's watching Toy Story movies together, just watching movies together, or working on a puzzle together. And maybe mom can tell or maybe point to where to put certain pieces if that's too hard with those fine motor skills. And then another thing could be to create a time capsule about our family. So kind of remembering what how things were and where we're at this point. So I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Kim for the next half of our presentation. We'll take it from there.
Thank you so much, Deanna. And I just want to check in with Danielle. Are there any questions that have come through so far?
Currently, we don't have any questions.
Okay, perfect. Then we're going to shift and focus on will things ever be normal again? Really focusing on the, how do you help your family cope? How do you adjust to this kind of new situation that you're all in, and how do you create this new normal? So that's something that the families that we work with will often ask, or maybe they get frustrated with people asking them or thinking about, will there ever be a new normal? So we found it helpful to break out, what does normal mean? To just really kind of think through what are the components when we're talking about a new normal. So some synonyms for normal are typical, expected, habitual, accustomed, ordinary, and natural. And those really translate to these three key areas that I'm going to focus on with you: predictability, stability, and then fitting in or belonging. So these are things that you've already been doing as a parent. And I don't know how new, those of you who are listening in or watching later, how new this situation may be for your family. But prior to a serious illness or injury happening in a family, you were already shifting and adjusting based on different seasons, based on just different things going on in your lives, to kind of recreating predictability or stability and focusing on helping your children and teenagers find that space for fitting in. And so just know that that's something that you've done and you have the ability to do. And hopefully by focusing on those components, it'll feel more normal and natural to you. So let's break down predictability and let's talk about that a little bit. And Deanna did an amazing job of talking about things related to, just having some routine around conversations. And so fit that into all of the things that you're doing as a family. The illness is one component. Of course, it's a very significant component, but it's one component of your entire family life. And I'm sure you and your children, your whole family, you want to take breaks from that and not just be focusing on the illness, but you really want to integrate it into just daily routines, weekly routines, and seasonal routines. So you see on this slide, there's like summer rules. So it's not summer right now, but summertime is different for most families. Things look different, routines look different. Just like the start of school, that's a transition time. And for many families and parents, they recognize like, oh gosh, when school starts, things just kind of feel kind of crazy and unsettled until we settle into a new routine. So think about that. And as you're going through different changes and ebbs and flows with treatment or just progression of illness, think about, okay, what's happening right now and what might be new or different this week. So using a weekly planner like you see with the picture, or it may be a day where maybe there's a surgery, you're having a major surgery. And so you're focusing on what's going to be different today. And it might even be breaking it down hour by hour for that particular day. So week to week include, what's happening with soccer practice, what's happening with my treatment, what do we expect might be going on with side effects, who might be visiting, all of those pieces, and what's happening with school. Do we have an early release day, and that type of thing. So then the support system. So thinking about that stability. Stability really is about, what do I have within my realm of support and within myself. So it also has to do with coping tools, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But who's available to me in my different settings? And so part of this process is assessing as a parent from your perspective, and then assessing together with your children and your teenagers. Do they have the support people in their world currently that are meeting their needs? And we all go through times, and children will naturally go through times where they don't have those support people or the peer system. And there's different types of support, right? So it could be somebody that's more tangible support, giving them rides somewhere, or somebody that provides something specific. So helping them think about, like, who are people that you can just have fun with? Who are people that you can really open up to? And then planning. So like on the screen, you can see my school support plan and my home support plan. So if you're home and dad's really tired and sleeping a lot, what are some things that you can do if you're starting to worry about him? Or if there's a medical emergency that happens, it's really beneficial to plan ahead, just like we would plan ahead for a fire safety plan if we were to have a fire in our home. It doesn't mean that we're expecting that to happen, but if it did happen, let's make a plan. So having conversations and then revisiting these support plans on a regular basis. So we interviewed some of our teens through our teen groups, and asked them to tell us, what do they find helpful, and specifically around adults, like things that adults do that they find helpful and supportive, and things that adults do that they don't find helpful or supportive. So these are things that might initiate some conversations for those of you who have teenagers in your home. You might say, hey, I learned some things that some teenagers find helpful. I'm curious if you would agree or not, and what you have found helpful and what you have found not to be helpful. So the teens that we talked with, helping with a specific need or task, and adults initiating those opportunities to connect. You'll see this in the last bullet as well. These really tie together. Avoid putting the responsibility on the teenager to come to you. So let's say you have a neighbor who's saying, how can I help your teenager? Letting your neighbor know, just telling my son that you're available probably isn't going to be really helpful to him. But if you can offer my son some options for when you could give him rides, or when you might take him to get a hamburger, or whatever, get some ice cream, those are the things that teenagers said make a big difference to them. And then adults who understand but don't overreact. Sorry, Deanna, can you go back to the last slide? Thank you. Adults who understand but don't overreact. So it can be really difficult for a teenager if the adults around them are like, I'm just so sorry, this must be so hard. And if those adults are kind of, in the teens' words, they would say, being dramatic, that's difficult for a teenager. They want adults to acknowledge the reality of the situation, but also kind of be able to maintain and manage their own emotions, but be comfortable. Teenagers are tricky, right? Be comfortable with teenagers expressing their emotions. And often for teenagers, that may come out. It may not come out as sadness. It may come out as anger, frustration. It can come out in a lot of ways. And then expressing belief in a teen's abilities. And these are ideas for you with your own teens, as well as other adults in their world. That acknowledging that this is a challenging situation, but you can do it. I believe in your ability. I believe in your ability to access your support, to add to your coping tools, to deal with hard days and get through tough times. And then avoiding cliche phrases like everything will be fine. Teenagers understand, children understand that we don't know that, and we can't guarantee that. What they're really needing to know, what children and teenagers really need to know, is that they will be taken care of. How might they be taken care of, during times that their parent may not be able to care for them in the way that they normally do. That's kind of the way of saying it's going to be okay, but you will be cared for, and here are some ways that you will be cared for. Okay, thanks, Deanna. We can move on to the next slide. So thinking about that last component, we talked about predictability, stability, and then those that sense of belonging, that sense of fitting in. And for children and teenagers, this is really about being able to be a child, being able to be a teenager in the midst of the challenges that your family is facing. Children and teenagers need age-appropriate activities. They need to be able to get involved in activities that they enjoy or that they're interested in trying, and just be there and not have it be focused on things that are happening elsewhere in their lives. And so we recognize, and we talk often with families about it, it changes when you're dealing with all of the stressors of illness and treatment, that you may not have the bandwidth, you may not have the financial resources for your child to be involved in the same number of activities. So as the adult, as the parent, first determine what is realistic for your family, and then have conversations with your children about, we can navigate one activity this season, during this fall season. Which one activity is most important to you, or which one activity would you like to try? And then access your support system, or build your support system further to help make that happen whenever possible. So they need permission, opportunities, and then opportunities to connect with other children or teenagers who do understand. That may be a group with other children or teenagers who also have a parent with a serious illness, or it may just be 1, 2, or 3 friends who maybe they don't have a parent with a serious illness, but they're able to allow your child to fully express what's happening. This could be the child that your child feels comfortable bringing to your home, that they're okay with seeing all the things that are kind of going on in the walls of their home with the treatments, with medical equipment, that type of thing. So be assessing that and be talking about that with your children, and be, helping them think about how they can identify a friend or two who can be that person for them. And then children and teenagers are constantly growing and changing. And so this will ebb and flow, the activities that they're interested in, the things that they're needing with friendships and relationships. And that's true for all children and teenagers. But of course, the illness piece adds this added component. Okay, so we love to be able to kind of look around corners for our families that we work with based on what we've experienced with other families who have been in similar circumstances, and based on what we see with children and teenagers who we work with. And so we know that there are expected extra challenging times for children and teens. Just like, as a parent, when school starts, until things settle in, that's going to likely be kind of an extra challenge. When summer starts, just major transitions. So here are some of the times where we just want to give you a heads up to be aware and expect that it's normal for it to feel more challenging, and for your child or teen to maybe respond differently. So separation from parents, especially if it's a new separation or a new routine around separation. And we see this often. I can think of a family that I've been talking with recently where the mom is about to start a brand new treatment, and it will be out of town, and she'll be going for a couple weeks at a time, then returning home, and then going back. So this is a whole new routine around separation. And it's going to take some time to get into that rhythm, and for everyone to feel like, okay, now we've got the tools that we need to cope with this. So just about that, preparing for that, and I'm going to share some ideas of that as well. And changes in the parent's medical condition, sometimes this is sudden and sometimes this is gradual. And sometimes it can be like, wow, we didn't really think about changes, and now all of a sudden, looking back, a lot has changed in the last 3 months. So if you experience a time where your child or teenager is kind of acting differently, maybe acting out a bit, maybe have some conversations around, are there things that you've noticed that are different? Maybe they're noticing some things that you haven't tuned into. And then developmental growth, which is happening all the time. But when a child's brain reaches a new kind of cognitive level, they have new questions. They're thinking about things that they didn't think about before. They have a new awareness. There's new challenges, and they need time to build new mastery. And then the last point here is insufficient or inaccessible coping tools. And this usually happens if one of the 3 points above, if something's happened in those areas, or other changes just in life. It could be a move, it could be a friend moving away, it could be a new school year. And so that growth and change require building new coping tools and developing new resources. Okay, so let's jump into talking a little bit more about separation and how you can help prepare for and help your child or your teenager cope with separation, which is inevitable. It's inevitable for all children and parents, but certainly when there's a serious illness or injury. And that separation may be more, you may all be in the same home, but the ill parent may not be as available, maybe sleeping more or not feeling well, or just physically not able to do the same things. So it could be feeling more like a separation. If you have young children, if you're not familiar with the book, The Kissing Hand or The Invisible String, I recommend that you look both of those up. And they're similar in terms of having a wonderful message of how we can be connected to those that we love, whether we are physically together or not. And there's also lots of wonderful activities. If you Google The Invisible String and activities that go along with that, there's some wonderful things that you can step through together with your child if you decide to. But one simple in terms of like supplies, an activity that we love is creating paper chains. So if you know that there's an expected separation, let's say for 2 weeks, creating a paper chain ahead of time with your child with each link representing a day, and then add some links to the end, because of course you never know for sure, and kind of preparing for that plan A, plan B, that, okay, we're planning this idea, but it could change. So let's add a few links on the end. And then each day your child can remove a link. And one fun thing, if they wanted to, is they could write on that piece of paper something that happened that day that they want to be sure that you know about, or the parent who's separated from them. And if parents have time in creating the paper chain, you can write maybe a few words of encouragement on each link. So when the child removes that link, they see those words of encouragement. Of course, reading books together, whether that's virtually or recording your voice or a video of you reading a story, can be helpful. A traveling teddy bear, or we had a family where they had a traveling Hot Wheel. Basically, if there's a situation where someone can be kind of going back and forth, maybe the parent is in the hospital and the child can't visit, or the parent is in a long-term health rehab facility and the child can't visit, something might be able to go back and forth. So that teddy bear could be with the parent some of the time and then go back and be with the child. You know, if it's daily, it could be daytime with the parent, nighttime with the child. But going back and forth with that Hot Wheel or that teddy bear could be, you know, your mom sent you a big hug, your dad sent you a kiss and sent you this message. You can send them something. So it's a connection. The key with separation is to maintain connection, and it doesn't have to be direct, it can be indirect. Having a child choose a t-shirt, a favorite t-shirt of their parent, putting that over a pillow, and that can be something that they hug and focus on when they're missing their parent. And then Snapchat streaks. So with teenagers, and it may be texting, it may be whatever mode of communication that teenager is maybe into. This is something that one of the teenagers I worked with came up with on her own. Her dad was having a bone marrow transplant and was in the hospital for an extended time. And she just started on her own Snapchatting her dad a picture of her coffee and what she was reading each morning for school. And then he would Snapchat back something in his room, a picture of something in his room, or his nurse might do that, or just a picture of who's taking care of him. And then of course, video chatting or virtual calls. Okay, so coping with change, as we were talking about, change is inevitable. And of course, with serious illness and injury, change can be sudden, it can be gradual, but it can be it can be something that as a parent, you're really struggling to help your child or teenager adapt to. So this is an activity that just requires paper and markers. Your child or teen can trace their hand. And then what I encourage is to have them focus first on those things that feel out of control to them, and those things that they don't have, that they can't, personally change. So they can put them in clouds like in this picture, or they can just write or draw or put symbols all over the paper to represent those out of control things. And then focus back on the hand and what are things that they do have control over, and have them identify. They might need some help, but oftentimes it surprises us what children and teens identify in terms of what is within their control. And then something you can do, or they can do, is cut out the hand and kind of keep the hand as a reminder, and then shred the rest of it and let that go. So let's skip to the next slide. So just thinking about this whole idea of creating this day-to-day rhythm, these, this new normal, so to speak. I want to just touch on a few additional parenting strategies and revisit some that we've talked about. With this photo of this family, this is a family who's been dealing with an incurable illness for a very long time. And I just love it because it's all about being you, like allowing your family to be your unique and amazing family that you are, and each person to be that unique and amazing person that they are within their family, and just navigating it like you've done every other kind of thing that's coming along in your world. Anytime that you feel like you're feeling disconnected from a child in your family or multiple children, or they're acting out, focus on one-on-one time. And as much as you can, build in a routine around one-on-one time. It can be very simple. It can be, we listen to a song together. It could be in the car, but we're focusing together on something. Scheduling family activities, family game night, family movie night, thinking about activity levels, especially for the parent with the illness. What could they be involved in? That's an important consideration. And then just being present in that moment. It could be 30 seconds. Put your phone away. Ask your child to put their phone away if they're old enough and have a phone. And just focus face to face, fully present, listening to understand what's going on for them. It's amazing how far that can go. And it requires some energy, but it doesn't require much energy. And it definitely requires less energy than not providing that focused attention and then trying to navigate, all of the feelings and behaviors that come when a child isn't able to get that focused attention. Supporting peer interactions, we talked about that. And sometimes that does mean supporting social media and opportunities for teenagers to engage with other teenagers. You want to have limits and you want it to be a healthy balance, but that is one way. Or it might be gaming. If you have a teenager that's into gaming, it might be gaming in an online community if you've determined that that's appropriate and safe for them. And then you modeling those healthy coping behaviors. What are the things that you're doing to help you cope? What support system have you identified? Modeling expressing your emotions. That's really important that they know that you can and do express your emotions. You're giving permission for them to do the same. Encouraging lots of different creative outlets and supporting each other in their creative outlets within your family, and then seeking additional external support. Okay, for this next section, we just have, there's 3 activities that I want to share that are really focused more around this idea of mindful memory making. And I encourage all families to be creating memories. Every kind of moment in time is a snapshot for us as our children grow and change. There's seasons in the lives of families, and there'll never be a moment where that child is again that age at that stage and your family is together doing that particular activity. So I encourage all families to engage in these types of activities, but absolutely recognize that for a parent with an incurable illness, it can feel very different. And so be aware of those emotions that come up for you, and talk about those and find support for yourself. But try not to allow that to keep you from avoiding doing some of these things together, because it can be really, really meaningful. So this activity is one of our favorites at Wonders and Worries. It's the family handprint canvas. And the idea, you don't have to have a canvas. You can use poster board or just, butcher paper. But for each family member to maybe choose a different color or different style for their handprint. Some families like to write the name in that hand. But then as you're doing this, talk about, why that child or you as a parent chose that color. Focus on your unique differences and similarities to create those connections that child later might think, oh, I remember that my mom and I both wanted to choose the same color because we both love that color. But, this is what we decided to do. And then when you do create something together, if you can, get a photo of your family. It could be a selfie, but capture with a photo that memory of that time together, because that tangible item may be something really special that you do want to save and keep. But I also want to give you permission that you do not have to save that tangible item, and to give your children permission that they don't have to save that tangible item. So in this photo on the right, the son to the far left was in college, and he came back from college when they created this family handprint canvas. And it just made me think about, like, if he were to take that canvas with him, we wouldn't want him to have that pressure of, like, I've got to save this picture forever. I want to make sure nothing ever happens to it. No, it's okay if you decided, you know what, I don't want to save this picture, but I'm going to remember that moment that we had, or maybe I'm going to take a photo of it. So giving yourself permission to have those tangible things, but to not be completely connected to the tangible. It's really about that process. So then another idea is to create a journal, a family journal. And this can be lots and lots of different ways. It could absolutely be a journal that you can purchase. It could be just a notebook. You could decorate the cover of it with magazine clippings and Mod Podge. This could be virtual. It could be a virtual journal. But work as a family to think about, how would you want to create this journal, and how do you want it to evolve over time? Of course, including a favorite photo. We love acrostics. So it could be the word mom, the word dad. It could be first names of each of your children, or nicknames that you have for each other. And then use the first letter of each of those names to describe that person. So capturing those acrostics. Having all about my mom, all about my dad, all about each member of the family. And children can interview parents, and teenagers can interview parents. They can have a lot of fun with this. Like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite food? A favorite activity? And capturing these things for each member of your family, again, creates that awareness of each other and your uniqueness, but those connections of, oh, my dad and I both really love scary movies, but my mom doesn't love scary movies, or my brother doesn't love scary movies. And then capturing memories. And there's another activity too where I'm going to talk about that, but just activities, things that you've done together. You can put those, favorite things that each of you identify from past things you've done. And then I am poems are just, focusing on I am, I want, I need, I hope. And then the last piece with this is there's a wonderful free available opportunity to capture a video, a legacy video. And this is through Inheritance of Hope, which is a wonderful organization. And they describe this as, everyone deserves to tell their story. Let's tell yours. And they encourage all of us, regardless of whether we're dealing with serious illness or injury, to create a family video, a legacy video. And it's usually individual. I said family, but it's a volunteer kind of stepping through one person, capturing kind of their story. So the link is there if that's something you're interested in looking into. And then the last activity I'll mention is creating a family rock garden. And just the process of gathering rocks can be a beneficial, like, just family activity. If the ill parent isn't able to go out and gather rocks, that could be something where they ask their children to select rocks that they might like, or they could describe, I really like smooth rocks, or I like rocks of different colors. So just that process in and of itself can be kind of a bonding experience. But if you live somewhere where it's not easy to gather rocks, you can order rocks, you can buy rocks. The last person who said, what can I do to help your family? You could say, order us a whole bunch of rocks, because we're creating a family rock garden, or collect a bunch of rocks for us. And then decorate a rock or multiple rocks for each person in the family, focusing on their strengths. This is all about strength and uniqueness. What is it that person brings to our family? They bring the jokes, they bring the fun, or they bring the organization and the detail. And so you're, again, connecting around those things. And then you can also focus on family values, things that your family identifies are important for us as a whole family, things that we believe in. And then decide together where to put your rock garden. It can be spread out, it can be inside, it can be outside. You can absolutely add to it. And you can also add special memories to it. Like, today we did this, and we want to create a rock to represent that and add it to our family rock garden. Okay, so let me, there's a section here about Wonders and Worries resources. And actually, let me go through those really quickly, and then we'll do some question and answers. So we have lots of resources on our website. I encourage you to go to our illness discussion resources, and you can look there. So that's just a plug to take a look. Our helpline, Danielle mentioned early on, it is available to all of you. And if this has brought up questions, or you're like, I really want some specific support around something, you can call or email our helpline, and we are here to guide you and really individualize what we've been talking about today for your family. Then we have amazing apps for you as parents. And I know we have many professionals on the call as well. It's really the same app, but just geared towards parents or geared towards professionals, with lots of incredible content, more activity ideas, free to download. The QR codes are right there. And then we have a podcast that you can find on any of the major podcast platforms, and it's called the Wondercast, and there's the little logo. And Julie, the picture there is of Julie, who facilitates that amazing podcast. It's designed for parents. And then before we jump into Q&A, this QR code, it's really important that we get your feedback on this Wondercast and what it was like for you. It's very short, just a few questions. If you're listening to this to the recorded version, we also ask that you provide your feedback, please, and just scan this QR code and it will take you to that survey. So let's see what questions have come up.
Before we get into questions, Kim, I did want to comment. I'm so glad you had a slide on the podcast, because when you were talking the whole time, I was like, I know we have podcasts on like school re-entry and that difficult time. And so I actually looked it up, and I'm happy to put it in the Q&A. But we have 3 episodes of school re-entry and those challenging times of routine being deep in during that time. So I'll put that in the Q&A for everybody.
Perfect.
But so far we've gotten really great feedback, Kim. But one of the questions was, would it be possible to obtain printables of the different handouts that you had on the slides? Will we be able to post
Absolutely. I think the best way for that, if you email helpline@wondersandworries.org and just ask for those slides. And you know what we can do? Well, Danielle, for everybody that RSVP'd to this particular to the live version, we'll send those out. We will send you a PDF of all of these slides. But if you're listening to the recorded version and you would like the slides, you can email helpline@wondersandworries.org and just specifically request slides for this Wondercast.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonder Chat. Sorry, we love our wonders. We have the Wonder Chat and the Wonder Cast.
So the second question was, will we actually be sharing the actual slides too, so we can share the resources and the slides?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. And then we had another question. It is what about if we are a divorced family?
Yes.
So communication around divorced families.
That is such a great question. And Deanna, feel free to add. What I encourage is that the adults in the family, all the caregivers involved, you know, the divorced parents and other caregivers that are closely connected, to create a communication plan. How do you all want to communicate with one another and with your children? And to have as much consistency as you can, but also recognize, because you can't control that other parent that you're, you know, co-parenting with, but maybe that isn't in the same home. Children and teenagers absolutely can adapt to, you know what, mom tends to talk more about these things when I'm with mom, and dad tends to talk more about these things, or, you know, rules are a little different here and there. So allow it can absolutely be a little bit different, but the key is that your children understand or have permission to bring up questions, bring up concerns wherever they may be, and that the adults in their lives can then help navigate, you know, responding to those questions and concerns that they have. And that may be one where, if you want to give our helpline a call, we could guide more specifically if you have kind of a specific challenge that you're navigating.
That is the only other question. I did put it in the chat, a link to our podcast for everybody to have too.
That's wonderful. And Deanna, did you want to add anything to that question about families that have a divorce situation or separated?
It's tricky. I think it depends on too how the communication is between the 2 adults. And maybe it's a journal that, or like a notebook that goes back and forth, or for the child to kind of write down the thoughts or feelings that are coming up too, to have that communication piece. But yeah, it can be tricky just depending on the dynamics, but more open communication, the better, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Deanna and Kim, for today's wonderful, wonderful presentation. I know I learned something today, but I always do when I listen to you lovely ladies talk. No.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate everyone attending and everyone who's listening in after the recorded version is posted. So we just wish you all the best.
And I think we also wanted to have just a note at the end. If you are watching the recorded version, please do scan the QR code still, and please give us your feedback.
Yes, yes. And that will also come, you'll receive a post email, those who registered for this webinar, and that feedback link will come in that email as well. And the link to where to access these Wonder Chats on our YouTube channel. Yeah, lots of resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.